Look, I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen.
AM 1420, WBSM presents Spooky South Coast with your hosts, Tim Weisberg and Matt Costa.
Good evening and welcome to Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with the silent assassin Matt Costa, science advisor Matt Moniz, broadcasting live on Spooky TV at SpookySouthCoast.com, and also here on the WBSM airwaves. We're happy to be here with you talking about the paranormal each and every Saturday night. And I guess the upside of the Red Sox terrible end to their season is the fact that we won't be preempted through the month of October. So our Christmas season is still intact because we'll be here pretty much every Saturday night. Of course, we have Haunted History Night 2011 coming up in Wareham on October 15th. And pretty much everybody that's in this room right now won't be here. Well, we're going to make Matt Costa work double duty because we don't know how to, nobody else knows how to work that stuff. But Chris Balzano will be filling in that night as your host all the way from Florida, while we are having our event at the Fearing Tavern in Wareham, as well as a few other historic buildings down there. Tickets are just $99. They are for sale at SpookySouthCoast.com. If you just go there and click on the event, you'll be able to see all the details about it. But you're going to get dinner. You're going to get lectures. You're going to get to investigate with myself and Matt Moniz and Andy here and Jeff Belanger, author and host of 30 Odd Minutes, and you've seen him all over the place. He's probably he's probably the star attraction of this event outside of the Fearing Tavern and the buildings themselves, because those are some really unique spots to investigate. The tavern's only been investigated by a handful of people, most of which are in this room right now. And then the other buildings, the one-room schoolhouse, the chapel, and the old meeting house, the old Methodist meeting house, those have never been investigated by anybody. So this is going to be the first chance ever. So you're going to have hours of investigation, lectures, dinner. It's going to be a great night. $99, and a portion of that goes to the Wareham Historical Society to help them keep these great buildings up. And hopefully it opens the door for a lot more paranormal investigation in there too. So I don't know. I'm excited. I'm so excited about it. I've been thinking about this now ever since last week at the Southcoast Paranormal and Psychic Fair, when we were discussing some of the Fearing Tavern evidence that was gathered, and when we were talking with some of the people about it. I mean, it started to get me really excited knowing that it's getting so close. I can't wait to see the looks on people's faces when they get into the tavern and see how awesome that place is. And Andy, you write about it in your new book, Ghosthunting Southern New England, which we'll be talking about with you all through the night tonight. But it's got to be one of the coolest spots.
Oh yeah, you don't even have to be interested in ghosts to find that place fantastic. It's a time capsule. It really is. They've done a great job preserving it, and takes you right back when you walk into it.
And one of the interesting things about this book, Ghosthunting Southern New England, I make a big deal about how we got to go into that tavern, built in 1690, and it's got to be one of the oldest spots you can investigate. In the book, there's some places there that predate the Fearing Tavern.
Yeah. One of them unfortunately burnt to the ground just recently up in Groton, Mass. Worcester Paranormal were the ones who told me about that place, and it hadn't been written about. And Kathy Caslin and her group are probably the only serious paranormal group to ever investigate it. And they brought me in on it, and the stories that the owner and the management and their staff told me, they were fantastic. I mean, you could see the emotion in these people's faces as they were recounting these moments. But unfortunately, as the book was being printed this last August on I believe it was a Tuesday night, 9:30, it just caught fire in the attic. There was an electrical problem. And by the time the fire brigade got there, it was a lost cause, which is a shame. I mean, yes, I did document this site, this historic site and its ghost stories, but it's just a shame that people won't be able to see it, because it was a terrific place to eat, have a drink, stay the night. It had rooms in it to stay that were haunted, and it's just a shame they lost what they called the jewel of the historic district in Groton, Mass.
And it seems like as we went through the book, as I went through the book and I was reading some of these, that a lot of these buildings are conglomerations of many buildings that were built during the
like out in at the inn at Duck Creek out in Wellfleet. Matt's been there with me. We investigated that with Tracy and Tiffany, and we had some personal experiences. And I believe Tracy caught some EVP conversation. Am I correct?
Correct. She got a couple of little items and few things on video.
But classic, as I learned from reading the fantastic book Cape Encounters.
Dan Gordon.
Dan Gordon. I mean, he was a big help me researching out in Cape Cod, and so was Gary, his buddy. And they were the ones who told me about the Inn at Duck Creek. And I went out there, and Bob and Judy were just, fantastic. And that's what I learned. The guy who had the properties since the early 20th century had brought a lot of old buildings around Wellfleet to the property. I mean, the captain's house was already there, but the salt box house was taken from the harbor. And the little tavern that was on the property was expanded on by, I think, 3 other buildings taken from around Wellfleet. And as the Cape Codders say, it's the old wood that holds the souls. So you just don't have the ghosts that were haunting your property for whatever reasons they are. You have other people's ghosts that come along with the old wood.
Well, I want to talk to you a little bit about the process of writing this book, because you started this quite some time ago, and I remember talking with you about it, and you were discussing some of what your vision was for the book. And it's by Clarity Press, and it's part of their America's Haunted Road Trip series. So there was some degree of format to it.
It was actually, to be honest with you, it was all John Kachuba, the editor for the series. It was John's idea. Not to steal his story, but he told me he had written, I believe it was Haunted Ohio, for another publishing company at the time, the first version of the book. And he had a big burly Harley Davidson looking guy come up to him at the end of his talk, and he said, "Hey, can anybody visit these sites you talked about tonight?" And that's when the light bulb went over John's head. He's like, "Ooh, road trip." Because that's what the biker was looking for, a place for he and his club to go, and they figured a Halloween-themed ride. So John proposed this idea, this road trip series. So he was the one who gave me the guidelines. He said, I hear that you know your stuff. You've been ghost hunting for a while. You know Southern New England. I've seen your website. You know how to write. If you want the job, it's yours. You got a year to do it. And you got to have this criteria, and that was all the sites the public had to be able to visit it. Whether it was to have a meal, take a tour, stay the night, or if it was an open public place that wasn't private property and you're not going to be trudging around on someone's front lawn to go look for ghosts. But that was basically it. I had to find places that the public could go to that had something else special about it besides being haunted.
Well, so you have the book as kind of the roadmap for how to write it, the series format for how to write the book. But is there a roadmap to how to get to, all these places and how to be able to bring those all about in the course of 1 year? Because by reading it seems like you were just all over Southern New England.
That's just it. And as I was telling John at one point halfway through the book, I said, I'm literally driving to every place that I heard had a reputation. Because, you like take the Carousel Garden restaurant out in Connecticut. It's, this famous Connecticut haunt. Well, by the time I got out there, it's now a hair salon and beauty academy. So, and the woman said, and I've never experienced anything in here. Don't mention me in your book. So I was finding places that had either gone out of business.
Or on the radio.
Yeah. But well, she said, it wasn't haunted. But I was finding places that were closed down. New management actually was like, oh, that's ridiculous. Get out of here. This place isn't haunted. So I did run into a lot of stumbling blocks, to fit that format of the book. But with the help of, my friends and colleagues throughout Southern New England, I was able to find, enough places for the book, 36 chapters in all.
Well, and speaking of some of your friends, a lot of them are in the chat room tonight on Spooky TV at SpookySouthcoast.com. And we hope during the course of the show, people can call in and share some of their own experiences at some of the places that Andy mentions in the book and that we'll talk about here tonight. The numbers are 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420. You can jump in the chat room, as I said, at SpookySouthcoast.com. You can also email us, spookycrew at SpookySouthcoast.com, or you can text us, 508-444-2661. That's 508-444-BOO1, BOO1. And those are all the ways to get a hold of us and to talk with Andy during the course of the discussion tonight. When you were starting it off, was the idea behind there to try and hit some of the more famous haunts early on, or some of the more intriguing haunts, or was there any kind of layout for it in how you wanted to rope the reader in?
I basically figured for traveling time, the winter, because that was something I had to take into consideration. I figured I better keep the sites that are closer to Greenville, Rhode Island, toward the end of the book. Let's travel while the weather's good. I started basically out on Cape Cod and moved into your territory, Spooky South Coast. And then basically jumped way over to the other side of Connecticut and western Massachusetts, and then worked my way back towards Rhode Island, looking into some sites in Rhode Island during the way, setting up appointments to meet people.
So it's kind of chronological to how you investigated the sites?
No. I basically put the chapters together, I thought, with relevance to stories. Like if I made mention of the King Philip's War and I knew there was going to be another mention somewhere down the line, I figured, take that into consideration. No, I put the chapters in the order they did when the book was done. I was thinking about that as I was writing it, but I didn't go to chapter 1 first and chapter 2 second. I was basically bouncing around like a BB. Connecticut was very tricky. I found John Zaffis actually helped me, which was great. We had him on our show 30 odd minutes, and I'd mentioned I was having a difficulty finding spots in Connecticut. And he goes, "Oh, they're stinkers about their ghosts. They like to keep tight-lipped about it." He goes, "I was born in Connecticut. I've been doing this for over 35 years, and I have trouble getting into some of these places." But he was great in getting me the Mark Twain house and also the Booth Memorial Homestead, which oddly enough, my editor was married there. I did not know that. I sent in the story about the Booth Memorial Park in Connecticut and got it back from my editor, and he said, little side note, I was actually married there.
Well, there's a similar thing happened when I was putting together my book. I ran into stumbling blocks in Mattapoisett and Rochester. There doesn't seem to be a lot of openness to talk about that in that area, but it seems like out in Western Mass in particular, people seem pretty open about a lot of these haunted locations.
Yeah.
I've never been out that way, and
beautiful.
I've wondered if there's, you know how we say certain places have a feeling.
Yeah.
Is there a feeling out there about a lot of this stuff?
I remember when I went into Lenox, I had I got an appointment to interview the staff at Ventforth Hall. That was thanks to Tom Laughlin at Chicopee Paranormal. Got in touch with me about that one. He found me just floating around on the web. And I got out there and I took a motel room in town, and there was a very nice lady who had emigrated from India, very sweet lady. And she as she was typing up my bill, she's like, "So what are you doing in town?" And I told her, I said, "Oh, I'm researching a book." And she goes, "Oh, you're writing a book about what?" And I said, "Ghosts." And she just stopped typing and she looked up and went, "Ghosts?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "This town is very haunted." She goes, "As soon as I'm done with your bill, I'm going to take out a map and show you all the places I know have a reputation." So Ventforth Hall apparently isn't the only place in Lenox that has a reputation. But again, I guess the locals don't talk about it too much.
Nice. Well, we did have a call on the line, but of course, as normal, I didn't get to them fast enough. But if you want to call back, the numbers are 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420. We're talking with Andrew Lake tonight, author of the new book, Ghosthunting Southern New England. It's available on Amazon, and
Yep.
I know I got a text message from somebody on our text line earlier tonight saying that they got the book at BJ's.
Yeah, I've heard that. Somebody on Facebook said, "Hey, my mom bought the book at BJ's. I can't get it till Christmas."
I know it's available at the paper store in Wareham because I went in there to see if they had mine, and they didn't, but they had Andy's, so that's good. There's plenty of places to pick up the book Ghosthunting Southern New England. But and I know you've got a big event coming up next month in Rhode Island.
Oh yeah, we're on November 13th. We're putting together the first ever Northern Rhode Island Paranormal Fair. Jeff Belanger will be there, and hopefully Spooky will make an appearance in some form or another. But the whole idea of it is we're going to be setting up tables for everyone from paranormal investigators to historic researchers. We even hope to get a dowsing rod expert in. And basically the public can come in, anybody who's interested in ghost hunting or may have a haunting they'd like somebody to look into, they can go around the room and talk to all different types of investigators and researchers and look for help or advice. And I think it'll be a very, very good informative night.
Someone was sending me messages on Facebook this week after the Southcoast Paranormal and Psychic Fair last week. Their interest was piqued and they wanted to find out more and find a way to get involved. And I had mentioned this event to them and said, this is the place to go to because he's from Rhode Island. This is the place to go to and to find people who are in the know and people who can help you out. So it definitely sounds like a great networking thing for people. And, of course, you'll be selling your book there and signing copies of it.
Certainly.
All right, so there you go. And what's the date again on that?
November 13th.
And it'll be at the...
it's the Elks Lodge in Smithfield.
Okay, and I saw there's a website for the event?
Yeah, you can find it off of Facebook. Shame on me for not being able to ramble off the address. We just put it together.
Well, we'll look it up during the news break later on. We'll have people
it's like Northern Rhode Island Paranormalfair.com or something like that. It's a mouthful. I know that.
All right, well, let's go to the phones. Again, 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420 are the numbers if you want to call in. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast with Andrew Lake. How are you?
Yes, good evening. I had overheard a little bit of the program, and I was somewhat curious, and I wanted to ask your guest about the Coronado Hotel in San Diego.
Oh, I'm afraid I have no experience
No.
of that. The book basically covers Southern New England.
Okay, it just covers. Had you heard anything about the Coronado?
I've heard of it, but I'm not very familiar with it.
What are some of the stories that come out of there?
When I was there, my husband and I, we got in the cab, and cab driver was kind of very nervous, and he says, "A lot of ghosts in there," and it seems like Marilyn Monroe had stayed there, and a few others, and I was just wondering if there was some truth to that or not, because I'm a skeptic.
Well, yeah, I've heard I believe there was a mirror that used to be in her favorite room is now like in the lobby area, and people have claimed they've seen Marilyn Monroe's translucent form in front of the mirror as if she's,
Really?
checking her hair. And I guess there's a couple of other celebrities that are supposedly seen hanging about. But
Exactly.
But so far in my research, California, I'm very vague on.
Okay. Well, all right. I thank you very much, and I've enjoyed your program.
Great. Thanks for the call.
Bye-bye.
I wish our friend Weird Fresno was listening in on the in the chat room at Spooky TV, because he would have maybe more answers for us than we can supply. But I mean, that's the thing. I mean, every area has its ghost stories. Every area has its haunted locations. And I think it's just now that we're starting to pay attention more to some of the ones around here. And books like Ghosthunting Southern New England are kind of an easy to read, easy to learn guidebook to get out there to not only learn the history about it, the reports of what people are reporting, but how to get to them too.
Yeah.
And so when you actually got the chance to go into a lot of these places. Now, some of them, by reading it, are from when you decided to write the book.
And I revisited even ones I'd been to before to make sure that I was getting my stories straight, and I wanted to see if there was any fresh stories. Like I'd been to the Nathan Hale house in Coventry, but I'm glad I went back because there were a couple of fresher stories that happened since my last visit.
And is it... I mean, did you find that people were more open to talk to you as an author, or more open to talk to you as a paranormal investigator? Who do you think has a better chance of getting their foot in the door?
That's a good question. I think this most people are impressed when you say, "Oh, I'm writing a book," but I got also a lot of people would ask me questions that left me thinking that I thought I was going to write a book. Like this book was never going to see the light of day. But when I told them, no, this is a part of the Clearacy Press series, it will be printed. Then it was like, oh, well, I'll be in a book, and our place will be in a book.
And that's good for them, because it's public places that want the business.
It generate, but they were also fascinated because a lot of people were like, well, I don't know if you believe in this stuff, and I go, oh, I do very much believe in this stuff. I am also a ghost hunter and paranormal researcher. So they would then, I noticed a lot of people would perk up, so they didn't. I'd run into docents and managers that would go, look, I don't believe in this stuff, but if my staff says this happened, I got to believe them. They're good people. Or a friend of mine came to help me one night at the museum, and we were the only ones in it, and he or she said they saw this. So even though I haven't experienced anything, my friends have, so they felt a little bit more comfortable talking to somebody who was open-minded, not just somebody who was hired to write a book about the subject. So it helped both ways.
And a lot of the stories that come from the book, it's a lot of staff at these locations that mention being the only ones present. Excuse me, or only a handful of people are present at the time. But are there a lot of stories related to these places of when they're open, when they're active, when business is in full swing? I mean, are some of these ghosts still making their presence known then?
Yeah, the Tavern on Main in Chepachet, Matt's been there himself. A lot of history in there, and
great place.
There's got to be at least 5, if not 6 ghosts, if you can count their personalities and what they do. And to answer your question, Tim, yeah, people. I talked to a lady that was having lunch in the place, had no idea of its reputation, and the dining room wasn't that busy. And she looked up from her meal, and there was a smiley faced boy standing there in like early 19th century clothing with a round collar and the little knicker pants, smiling at her. And she thought, well, there must be some historic reenactment or something in town. And she looked at him and said, "Hi, little boy, what are you doing?" And he just smiled at her and spun around, and as he ran away, he just disappeared right in front of her.
Wow.
And when the waitress came out, she said, is this place haunted? And the waitress went, "Which one did you see?" And she was like, "There was a little kid standing." And she went, "Yeah," and he ran away and disappeared, right? She's like, yeah, don't worry, we've seen him. He plays with the faucets in the ladies' room and so on and so forth.
Well, I think one of the things, we've had you on the show many times, you're part of the Spooky crew, but one of the things we haven't really gotten into, and if you don't want to, that's fine too, but how you got involved in this field and how you first started checking this stuff out.
Well, I mean, I think it's like anybody who does this. It was a very early childhood experience at the age of 11. staying with family friends. They had a house out in Scituate, Massachusetts. It was an old Victorian home that their family owned, and it was much too cold for anybody to live in it year round. I mean, paper thin walls and not much insulation. But there was a great beach house, and my friend's great aunt had died in the house. I didn't know that, but 2 nights running at exactly 2:35, I was woken up to somebody downstairs in the kitchen moving stuff around, but yet there were no footsteps, and then it would stop. And it happened 2 nights in a row, and that's when I found out the great aunt had died in the house. 2 years later in England, I had an experience in an old manor house we were renting, and years later, a friend of the family who did not know that story stayed at the very same house and commented on the same phenomena. So at a very young age, I was like, I just had experiences, and I knew people I knew I could believe that told me their own experiences. But it wasn't until about 2006 my life took a change. My dad got very ill, and I decided I was going to keep him at home and take care of him. And with my life completely restructured, it took me about 5 seconds to realize what I could now do. The way my life was, I'm like, I can do the research now. I can conduct the interviews. I can look into all these places I've heard about, talked to other people about, read, and what books I'd collected. And since 2006, I can honestly say it's all the time with me. It's a subject I never get tired of.
And when you do have the time to spend on the research, which is key, of course, anybody that gets into this, the research is the bigger part of it. The investigation is only a small part of it. But when you had the chance to actually delve into some of these stories more in depth, it definitely reflects on you now as an investigator, because you come to an investigation with as much historical background as you can. And then something even like the Fearing Tavern, which when you first came out there with us, you hadn't really known that much about it, but you came prepared with whatever you could. And while other investigators are running into the building and talking to the tour guides and the historical society members and the docents and everybody else asking questions about the activity, your first line of questioning is always about the history.
Right.
And that's what impresses me, because you want to get the full story before you even worry about, what the ghosts are. And I think that's, at least in my opinion, that's more of coming out of the respect that you have for these places, which I don't think a lot of investigators really have, even though they say they do because they're paying lip service to the location. But, they'd just as soon go in there and rip out everything historical and turn it into a ghost hunting fun park if they could.
Yeah, no, I can tell anybody who does this, it's really exciting when you have something happen to you at a haunted location. But I think some of the spookiest moments I've had is when you're doing research and you find out, oh my God, this guy did exist. This isn't just a story, and he did die that way, and the date matches, and and you start finding these subtle little details, and it's just, wow, there is a story here. This just isn't a campfire story that someone's grandfather started and it grew into a fiction.
And you use the abilities of psychics in a way that makes it a real valuable resource in investigation. You don't use it as your primary guide, but you use it as a way to kind of get a lead on some information and to verify some other information.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people cringe when you mention psychics, and I respect that. And the woman I work with, who's my best friend, Pam Padalano, a friend of mine who was a police officer, introduced me to her, and he said, Bud, I'm telling you, this woman's the real deal. And when I first started investigating with her, the first couple investigations, my running joke was, you're a fraud and I'm going to prove it. And by our third investigation, I had to take my jaw off the floor. We're talking full names, the exact way the guy died, exactly who was there, the situation, things to do with his personal life. And all of it was verified when the phone rang once and the homeowner picked it up. No one was there. And she said, that's your friend Jimmy. And she said, how do you know? And I said, well, hit star 69. She did. And sure enough, it was Jimmy. And Pam said, could I have the phone? And proceeded to talk to this guy. And everything she had just said to us was verified right then and there over the phone with this phone conversation. Wow. So, yeah, to get back to what you were saying, it does help. I bring her in completely dry, completely clean. I've been known to not only not tell her the town I'm taking her to, but take the longest way to the address I can, so she has no idea where I'm taking her. And to bring her in and to have the hits that she's had that either the family members or the business owner could verify right then and there, or we find poking around in the town hall or the library or what have you, or interviewing locals, it's been phenomenal. But yes, she is just one tool used in the research and investigations.
So does that change your mind then in people that have these abilities, or do you kind of look at this as an isolated case?
Well, I've again, going back to my childhood, a coworker my father worked with, his wife had the uncanny ability to shake your hand and look you right in the eye and tell you your exact birthday, month, date, year, and she did, predict an accident that was going to happen in our family, and it was almost the way she saw it, like down to the last detail. So at an early age, I knew there were people out there that do have this ability, but I think we can all agree we've met a lot of sad and lonely people who like to wear crushed velvet and amulets, and they really wish they had this ability, and you have to just, be patient with them. But
Well,
that's
they might have flashes of it, and they haven't fully developed
exactly. But what throws a lot of people off about my friend Pam is that she's just this white collar professional mom of 5, and she's just this typical mom, drives around in the mom soccer van and all that kind of stuff, and there's just nothing about her paranormal or spooky or what have you, and she just has this ability. Things just come to her like she's a radio or a TV, and she sees images and so on and so forth. But I wouldn't say I would always go with her hunch or what she's seeing, and even she says that. Sometimes she'll get stuff and go, I don't know what this means or why I'm being shown this, but let's make note of it and look into it. And every once in a while, you'll come back and go, whoa, wow, no kidding. I mean, our friend Katie in Acushnet, when I took Pam there, the stuff that's been found out and through historic research since her visit has just absolutely been bingo.
Yeah, researcher Debbie White Paiva, phenomenal researcher. I mean, this girl digs in archives and pulls out things that are just phenomenal. This is what she does. This is, who she is and how she does things. And to see what Debbie pulled out to validate 99% of what Pam brought out about the house without never having been there.
Yeah.
Never mind being able to, but she was able to validate a ton of stuff. And I've met Pam on several occasions and have to say that I am definitely impressed with her.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds to me like it's well worth the cost of having to buy her a cup of coffee and maybe a couple cheeseburgers late in the night and whatever it takes. But that's what impresses me though, is when you have somebody that's using those abilities for research and for investigation instead of just, I'm not disparaging anybody who does do this, but instead of just using it as a money-making ability and as a career for themselves, but to be able to dedicate to the research like that, they're only helping everybody else that has those abilities. They're helping to prove that those abilities are real, and the whole field benefits from it. So.
One of my favorite chapters in the book is right in my hometown of Greenville, a site that nobody had written about before. And Pam did get involved with the research and as an investigator at the mill site. And our very good friend Jim McNasher, who's written 4 books on local history in Rhode Island, had known a little bit about the mill and had uncovered a tragic murder involved at the mill. And Pam almost hit the guy's name exactly, the killer who killed the woman that he worked with in the mill. But I thought the most remarkable thing is she said, he's kind of like very childlike. He's not very smart. He's very dim-witted. He's very childlike, not too swift. And the newspaper account of the guy's trial, his mother even stood forward in the court and said, Your Honor, he's just too simple. He doesn't understand the crime he's committed. He's very, very simple in the head. So the fact that she almost nailed his name exact and got that characteristic about him, and hiding in the mill in shame and fear, and it was just it was rather spooky when it all came together.
It definitely sounds like it. We're going to talk a lot about some of the locations in the book coming up in the second hour. And I really want to pick your brain a little bit in the second hour, because normally when we bring you in here, you're guest hosting with us, and we're talking to another guest, but I don't really get the chance to talk to you about your theories and about what you think is actually going on with all this stuff.
Okay.
So we'll do a lot of that in the second hour, but we also will talk about more locations from Ghosthunting Southern New England. But we did just get an email in at spookycrew@spookysouthcoast.com. Mark from Cape Cod wants to know where one can buy this book. And we did mention a few places, but we'll mention a few more. And also if there's any stories from Cape Cod.
Because Gary did such a great job with Cape Encounters, I felt sincerely, I think that's the book about Cape Cod. I really do. I think I will endorse their book. I absolutely love that book. I did the story in Wellfleet, and toward the back of the book, there's a short list of places with a haunted reputation. And I did mention a couple on Cape Cod, but if you want a guide to locations in Cape Cod, get Cape Encounters. I hate to endorse someone else's book over mine, but it's a terrific book if you're interested in Cape Cod. It really is.
But that's just how it works here. I mean, no, we're not doing this to make money, because let's face it, there's no money to be made in publishing ghost books. But we're doing it because we want to contribute our say to the community, and it just makes for an overall. I think anybody that's serious about the paranormal in southeastern Massachusetts should have this book on their shelf, as well as everybody else's books that are out there, because it's not just. It's not like the old days where like you would write a book and then I would write one and I would say Andy Lake writes in his book and just quote from you word for word. Where it seems like everybody's going out to the same places and building upon what people have done in the past.
Right.
I mean, so many people who write about this topic. Charles Turk Robinson is the god in this area for his book, New England Ghost Files, and it just seems like everything has just increased since then. Instead of just rehashing, it's reinvestigating, it's reanalyzing, and and you just do a great job of bringing a lot of it back to the essence of the ghost story of what it's all about.
That's really what I'm all about. I tell people I don't do this to try and prove the existence of ghosts. I think that's a waste of time, but I think it's so important that we document these stories so when we're gone, they don't go back into these blurred urban legends, As you know, that's bugged me, and when I hear a ghost story that just sounds too cliched. Same thing with Chris Balzano. I mean, look what he's done with the redheaded hitchhiker story. I mean, I think he's done a good job of separating the wheat from the chaff on that story. Yeah, there is a good ghost story somewhere in there, but you got all this urban legend junk that gets connected to it. So let's push through that and look for the real stories. And recently, I did have a woman come up to me. I was at the Slater Mill, and she looked at me and goes, "Have you ever heard of that hitchhiker out on 44?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've heard about that." And she looked at me dead serious and went, "I've seen him." Wow. And I won't go into great detail about it, but what I found fascinating was she didn't see him right on 44. It was near the Seekonk line, but it was right off on her street. And she didn't know the story when she encountered this guy. Same thing, plaid shirt, looked like he had like reddish hair and a scruffy beard, and he just stepped right out in front of her car, and she thought, "That's it, I've just killed somebody." And I was so upset that when she got home, she pulled her whole family out of the house to, "No, please help me. This could be somebody laying up there in the dark I could have hit." And they were all going, "Yeah, right. It's the hitchhiker, right." And she's going, "What do you mean? I think I hit somebody." And once it sunk in that she wasn't kidding and she understood what they were talking about, they went up there to see if they could find anybody on this very cold night. There was nothing. There was no sign of anything. So why would somebody, pull a prank like that and not do it on the stereotype, cliched, 44 track that he's always talked about? So I do believe there's a real ghost story there, but it gets polluted with the urban stuff.
And not to deviate too much from that idea, but I want to bring this up. Last week at the Southcoast Paranormal and Psychic Fair, myself, Matt Moniz, and Andrew Lake, we were all there, and there were lots of people coming in who were not part of the paranormal community, who just had an interest or wanted to share their own stories and experiences and find out more. And somebody who was in attendance, I don't want to say his name without his permission, but he did put it out there on Facebook that a little girl and her mother, a little 8-year-old girl and her mother, had come up to him and showed him a video on a cell phone of a cat playing with a ball in a bedroom. And all of a sudden, this arm just materializes
I've heard
out
about
of nowhere.
this video. I haven't seen it, but I've heard about it.
Well, as it turns out, I said to him, it sounds very familiar to a video that I saw quite a while back, which has essentially been debunked as a hoax on YouTube. And he's like, "Well, I'd definitely be interested in seeing the video. At the very least, maybe this is a frequent phenomena that's happening, and we can track it down." And when I showed him the video, he said, "Oh my God, that's the exact same video I was had by an 8-year-old." Because her mother seemed to genuinely believe that what the 8-year-old was showing them was true too. So the question became, amongst our discussion, our online discussion, was why would somebody do that? Why would somebody go through all that trouble of having their mother take them down there to go up to this, semi-famous paranormal person, an up-and-comer in the field, and say to them, why is it that they would go to those lengths?
I think Jeff Belanger said it in his book Legend Tripping, because they become part of the story. And you also have the people that they come up with the conclusion to the story. Well, that person wanted to be part of the, the legend of a ghostly arm grabbing at cats or whatever legend they wanted to hook onto. But there are people that'll do that. They just want to get in there. I mean, some are doing it for a laugh, and then some are doing it for the thrill of, ooh, I'm going to be mentioned in, books from now on with this case.
And my point to him is that, we've reached a point now where you can't just be skeptical about the paranormal reports anymore, but you have to be skeptical about the person that's reporting them.
Yeah.
And it didn't always seem to be that way. And Moniz, you've been doing this for a long time, but it seems to not have always been that. If you could get somebody to talk about their ghost story, it was reluctant enough that you had to take them at face value because it wasn't something that they want to share. But now everybody wants to be part of the story.
10 years ago, you'd have to pull nails and teeth to get somebody to talk about this stuff. Since the advent of the current,
wave of entertainment,
the entertainment. I don't really want to call them ghost shows because they're not really shows about ghosts. They're more entertainment than anything else. But since it's become more publicly acceptable to do so, people are coming out of the woodwork. Yeah.
Well, we are coming up on the end of the first hour. We will have plenty to talk about coming up in the next hour. We're going to talk about more of some of the locations in Ghost Hunting Southern New England. We're also going to talk about some Wareham locations, including one that you can check out coming up on October 15th at Haunted History Night, which is up on our website, SpookySouthcoast.com, if you want to buy tickets. They are limited how many we can sell, and they are moving, so you want to get involved because even though the event is October 15th, we need you to buy tickets ahead of time just so that we can get a good count for the food. And the other thing that I want to talk about, and I know we talked about this a little bit, and I think you want to maybe discuss the evidence that you captured recently because this is a pretty fascinating piece of evidence that I just saw for the first time tonight. So we'll talk about all that and more. We'll also take your calls. Again, the numbers are 1-877-996-1420, 508-996-0500. Email spookycrew@spookysouthcoast.com, and texts to 508-444-2661. We have a lot of different numbers for people to use here, but they're all up on SpookySouthcoast.com if you can't find them easily. And when we come back, we'll talk more about not only these locations that are haunted, but why they are. It's not just about the ghost stories, but it's the history behind them, and that's what, in this book, Ghost Hunting Southern New England, Andrew Lake's been able to do. And again, if you want to pick up the book, it's available in local bookstores. I'm assuming that, with Halloween upon us, they're going to be in every bookstore around here. And, of course, Amazon.com. Clearacy Press probably has them on their site, too.
Oh, yeah, sure. Barnes & Noble, by the way, if you go in there, they like to put it in their travel section, so don't go right to the ghost section. It makes sense to put it in the travel section.
Well, I bet you if you go into the local Barnes & Noble here in Dartmouth, they have a nice table all the time with local history, and there's a local, ghost section there.
Right.
So I'm sure it'll be front and center right there when you walk into the store. And also, you can go to our site, SpookySouthcoast.com. We'll put it up in the Spooky Store, which if you buy things out of there, it helps us out a little bit. And we'll even take some of our profit back and give it to you, Andrew. How's that? Like I said, it's not as glamorous a field as people think it is. But when you make the connection with the locations, you can't help but want to tell their story.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll talk about all that coming up. But again, if you want to pick up the book, do so now online while we're taking a break. You can also pick up your tickets for Haunted History Night 2011 coming up on October 15th, just $99. I'm going to keep promoting this because it's such a great deal to get into a place that nobody's investigated that was built in 1690. Just imagine that. Yeah. Imagine it's seen every day of this country's history for as long as it's been around. So I know I'm just excited to get back in there.
I am too.
And we will do that. So we'll be back coming up in just a few minutes. For now, we're going to take a break. You can check out Spooky TV and see what's going on in the studio during the news. And we'll be right back with more here on Spooky South Coast.
First with local news, talk, and sports. This is WBSM New Bedford, AM 1420. WBSM, a Cumulus station.
From ABC News, I'm Chuck Sievertson. Republicans who want to be president and commander-in-chief have to support all the men and women in uniform, including those who are gay, says President Obama.
You can start by standing up for the men and women who wear the uniform of the United States even when it's not politically convenient.
At a gay rights event tonight in Washington, the president criticized his Republican rivals for not standing up for an openly gay service member who was booed by the audience at a recent presidential debate. He spoke about the recent end to the military policy against gays serving openly and that it's not unique to America.
All around the world, you've got gays and lesbians who are serving, and the only difference is now they can put up a family photo.
The president spoke at the annual dinner of the Human Rights Campaign in D.C., saying he would do what he could to scrap health care reform and many regulations, considering them impediments to prosperity. Texas Governor Rick Perry, Republican presidential contender, campaigning in New Hampshire. Perry also defended his in-state tuition policy for the children of illegal immigrants.
We made the decision that it was in our best interest as a state, economically and otherwise, to have those young people in our institutions of higher learning becoming educated and being part of our skilled workforce.
The Wall Street sit-in and camp out against corporate greed has grown to about 1,000 people, now over 2 weeks old. And there have been 500 arrests during a march to the Brooklyn Bridge earlier today, with complaints about police.
My boyfriend, who was with us on the bridge, was trying to leave, and he was in line with us, and they were saying, come this way if you want to leave. And they randomly picked him off the line and arrested him.
The New York protests spawned similar demonstrations today in Los Angeles, Boston, and Albuquerque. A stronger Hurricane Ophelia is now forecast to bypass Bermuda overnight and to also not be a threat to the U.S. East Coast. You're listening to ABC News.
Hey, squirrel! Stop sooner? Why'd you paint that? So you want drivers to stop sooner and save squirrel lives by replacing their shocks. But don't you feel bad about vandalizing? Okay, I'll mind my own business.
Keep your family safe. Monroe Shocks and Struts. And September 1st through October 31st, 2011, purchase qualifying Monroe shocks or struts and get up to $125 back. Restrictions apply. Mail-in promotion details available at monroe.com.
Know the worst part of being on your feet all day? Tired, achy feet. But I found a solution. Dr. Scholl's custom fit orthotic inserts. I stepped on the Dr. Scholl's kiosk at Walmart and it recommended the custom fit orthotic inserts that were best for my feet. Now my feet have the right amount of arch support and cushioning, and they're guaranteed to work or your money back.
Nurse to room 12.
Now when I'm on my feet all day, I'm more energized. You can be too.
Find a Dr. Scholl's kiosk at your local Walmart at footmap.net.
Afghan officials claim that they have evidence that the assassination of a former Afghan president was planned in Pakistan. More from ABC's Nick Schifrin in Kabul.
Investigators are heading to Pakistan, and President Karzai warns if they don't get help, he'll go to the UN. At stake is not just an investigation. But perhaps the future of the war. Afghans in the U.S. want to see Pakistan clamp down on Taliban safe havens, but Pakistan says it wants a guaranteed say in the future of Afghanistan before it helps bring peace to its troubled neighbor. Nick Schifrin, ABC News, Kabul.
As Libyan rebels surround the last stronghold of Muammar Gaddafi, his hometown Sirte, the top U.S. commander in Africa says NATO's role in Libya could wrap up next week. A former NFL player has died who made a lasting contribution off the field.
Peter Gent averaged 21 points a game as a star basketball player at Michigan State. The NBA's Baltimore Bullets wanted him, but Gent wanted to give pro football a try. He got a tryout with the Dallas Cowboys in 1964 and spent 5 seasons with the team. In 1973, Gent penned North Dallas 40, a novel about the seamier side of pro football. 6 years later, it was turned into a movie.
Oh, for Christ's sake, behave. There's pieces of me scattered from here to Pittsburgh on these football fields. Now, isn't that giving something back to the game? Isn't it?
Gent had been treated for a pulmonary illness for several months. He was 69. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
This is ABC News.
Attention.
Attention.
Rosetta Stone invites you to be a part of its biggest language learning event in history. Because in 2011, we want to help 3 million people learn a new language. That's why we're going to give you an absolutely free demo of our language immersion technology. Call 1-800-559-5133. Developed to fully immerse you in your new language, the Rosetta Stone solution is easier than ever before. For your free demo, call 1-800-559-5133. 1-800-559-5133.
Chuck Sievertson, ABC News.
Let's introduce you to Dante, who's up for adoption at the Forever Paws Animal Shelter in Fall River. He's a handsome brown and white medium-sized mixed breed dog that's friendly, curious, and loves to play. Tug and toss being his favorite games. He knows how to sit, drop the ball on command, and is working on giving you his paw. Currently, he has big, sad eyes because he's waiting for a loving home. He'd do best in a home with older children, but he does get along with certain other dogs. The breeds that were found in Dante, according to his DNA test, were American Staffordshire Terrier, Boston Terrier, Golden Retriever, and West Highland White Terrier. For more information, call Forever Paws at 508-677-9154 or visit their website at foreverpaws.com. A picture of Dante is posted on this site.
AM 1420 WBSM is a proud sponsor of the second annual Sharon's Walk to benefit the Southcoast Centers for Cancer Care. Sharon's Walk happens Sunday, October 23rd at the beautiful Fort Tabor in New Bedford. Last year, more than 900 walkers joined in the first Sharon's Walk. This year, there's room for even more. Registration fee is only $15 per person, and you can walk individually or as part of a team. Sign up early and get your free commemorative t-shirt. Register online at WBSM.com. Sharon's Walk, to benefit the new Southcoast Centers for Cancer Care. Sunday morning, October 23rd at New Bedford's Fort Tabor.
My name is Sue Smith. I'm 38 years old, and I work at a graphic design company, which is funny, because I couldn't even draw a stick figure when I was a kid. But I met someone who told me, you know what? You can do anything if you really want to. And if the teenage me were here, she'd tell you,
I wouldn't be into drawing and art if it wasn't for big brothers, big sisters. Most kids from my neighborhood don't get into art. They get into trouble. But I was lucky because my big sister showed me early on that I didn't have to be like most people. And to the young me,
that meant a lot. My big sister's name is Sheila, and Sheila is the reason that this 8-year-old grows up to have an amazing job as a graphic designer.
Whether you donate money or time, you're helping Big Brothers Big Sisters help a child, and that can last a lifetime. Start something today at bigbrothersbigsisters.org. Brought to you by Big Brothers Big Sisters and the Ad Council.
The NFL is back, and so are the Patriots. You'll hear every game and every play right here on AM 1420 WBSM.
Fires to the end zone. Leaping catch, touchdown.
Coach Belichick and Tom Brady have the team ready to take on the Jets, Ravens, Steelers, Colts, and the rest of the NFL. Patriots football is presented by Belltone, Fairhaven Lumber, Advanced Financial Group, Gary's Best Hot Dogs, and by Hamill, Waxler, Allen & Collins on AM 1420 WBSM.
Hi, my name's Bob. Hi, Bob. I see this ad on TV. Says I can reduce my debt by 50%. I call, they told me to stop paying my bills, stop talking to my creditors. They'd take care of everything.
I gave them thousands, but most of it went to their fees.
Getting out of debt is neither quick nor easy. There are those who will tell you anything to win your trust.
I'm more in debt now because the fees and interest on my cards kept piling up.
Talk to your creditors directly, or to find a nonprofit agency near you, visit debtadvice.org. This has been a public service message.
I see a great need in my community.
So Richard Washington set out to meet that need by working with youth in the juvenile justice system, joining thousands of other volunteers. If you're 55 and older, you can use the skills that help you through a lifetime of learning, giving, teaching, and working. Go to getinvolved.gov or call 1-800-424-8867 to find out how you can volunteer, impact your community, and make our country stronger.
Retired people have a lot to offer because we have life experience.
What are you going to do with your lifetime of experience? Go to getinvolved.gov today or call 1-800-424-8867. We have so much to offer, and our nation needs us. Make a difference for generations. This message is brought to you by the Corporation for National and Community Service.
This is the story of Daniel, who was born 2 months early. His lungs weren't ready. His heart wasn't ready. His parents could only hope that one day he would leave the hospital healthy, and they would all live happily ever after. Daniel's is just one of the more than 500,000 stories of babies born prematurely last year. you can help the March of Dimes stop premature birth and bring more babies home healthy. Learn how at marchofdimes.com. Working together for stronger, healthier babies.
Everything that happens now is happening now.
What happened to then?
We passed that.
When?
Just now. We're at now.
Go back to then.
When?
Now.
Now?
Now.
I can't.
Why?
We missed it.
When?
Just now.
Spooky South Coast is back.
I see your Schwartz is as big as mine. I knew it. I'm surrounded by balls.
All right, welcome back to hour number 2 of Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with the silent assassin, Matt Costa, science advisor, Matt Moniz, and our guest tonight in the Spooky Studio is Andrew Lake. He's the author of Ghosthunting Southern New England. The new book is part of the America's Haunted Road Trip series from the Clerisy Press. We are broadcasting on Spooky TV as well as on WBSM. You like how I almost forgot the radio station? It's only like everywhere around here that I almost forgot. And it is the most awesome station out there, except for a new online station that's coming up that I'll tell you about in just a minute. But we want to thank Chris for sending in the cookies. It was a nice, pleasant surprise to find.
Yes,
and
very tasty. I'm looking forward to that when I get home with some milk.
Cookies and noisy crickets?
Yeah. Laser tag in the studio.
But thank you again to Chris, one of our biggest fans. And also, we want to remind everybody out there that Spooky TV does broadcast all week long. We have shows that are in the works that are going to be coming to our online network on SpookySouthCoast.com. But right now you can catch Spirit Connections with Tiffany Rice Tuesdays at 9, in addition to our show every Saturday night from 10 to midnight. But if you're in the paranormal field, you'd like to host a show, let us know. I just was in discussions this past week with what I think is going to be a show that will blow everybody out of the water here. It's coming. I don't know how much I can give away just yet, but a very old friend of the program, no, she's not very old, but she's been a friend of ours since the beginning, is heavily involved in demonology, and she has a program that's going to be forthcoming, Hellfire Radio. And this isn't going to be a typical, the demonologist for a paranormal group, the person who says, that's going to be my specialty, I'm going to work on the demonology end of it, and talks about we're talking about connections to the church, we're talking about some real inside information, and people who are involved with demonology and the battle against demons every day contributing to this program. So it's going to be phenomenal. And knowing the people that are involved, I'm referring to them now, and I don't want to give away any information yet, but I refer to them as the West Coast version of Keith and Sandra Johnson. So that just goes to show you what regard I hold these people in for, because everybody knows how I feel about Keith and Sandra, who were amazing last Sunday night at the South Coast Paranormal and Psychic Fair. But stay tuned to Spooky TV at SpookySouthCoast.com for more forthcoming information on that. But hopefully we can make it happen real soon, and I can't wait. I know that I'm going to have trouble sleeping after watching Hellfire Radio. But and also, I mentioned a new online radio venture between myself and a gentleman that I went to school with. I don't know if he wants me to publicly say his name, so I know he's in the chat room, though, tonight. So, but we are putting together something called WarehamRadio.com, and it's going to be a website where it's going to be people talking about and talking from and just anything all about Wareham, whether it's things in your own life that you want to focus on. If you have a hobby, you want to do a show about your hobby. If you want to talk about politics, which is a very hot button topic in Wareham, there's room for that. So there's going to be probably a lot of controversy around it, knowing how things are and how divided Wareham is right now. But it should make for a very entertaining product. So WarehamRadio.com is the website. Stay tuned to that as well. And if you are somebody who would like to host that on Wareham Radio, if you want to host the program on there, just email us, warehamradio@gmail.com, and we'll help you work it all out. So
how about barbecuing with Matt and Joe on Sundays?
I like that idea.
There's a radio.
I was actually going to see if they were interested in doing a show about guns
Oh, there we go.
Because I know that they're very knowledgeable about that topic. Maybe we can work it out, grills and guns.
That actually doesn't sound like a bad idea.
Or buns and ammo.
Hey,
see?
Well, with the recent cantaloupe scare, the poisoned cantaloupes, Matt and I will have to keep assassinating cantaloupes out at the range.
Well, so I think there's going to be a lot of good stuff coming up both on Spooky TV and on Wareham Radio. So stay tuned to those websites for all that information. But now let's get back into the discussion of Ghost Hunting Southern New England with our guest tonight, Andrew Lake. He is the author of the book. And I'm getting texts from people in the field that want to know who it is that's going to be bringing Hellfire Radio to Spooky TV. I can't make that announcement yet.
Look in the archives. You'll figure it out.
No, maybe. I don't know. This person hasn't been on the show.
Oh.
Yeah, see? So Matt Moniz is even intrigued. So I'll tell you guys off there. I can tell you guys. But let's talk more about Ghost Hunting Southern New England. And we mentioned throughout the course of the show our Fearing Tavern Haunted History Night coming up October 15th. Get your tickets now, SpookySouthcoast.com. But you have a chapter in there about the Fearing Tavern, and your video, which you've dubbed Tinkerbell, that you captured, is actually one of the most intriguing evidence for people that want to come out and check out the Fearing Tavern.
And when you mentioned the Fearing Tavern in that video, that's also one of those things that just makes me go, ugh. Because I learned the hard way about hard drive video cameras through that clip. I found that you do not download hard drive video into a computer using the program that comes with it, especially if it's night vision photography, because it gets watered down.
Yeah.
So I lost the original footage, and the footage, unfortunately, that we have, which is compelling, is not as amazing as it was when it first was found on the camera's hard drive itself. That light was so intensely bright and twinkling when we caught it, and unfortunately, fortunately we do have a video of it, but unfortunately it is a watered down version of the original. That's something I've learned how to avoid that mistake in the future. But nonetheless, very, very interesting video.
I showed it last week as part of my Ghost of the Southcoast discussion, and even on the big screen blown up, the video that was essentially, I just pulled it off YouTube and added it into my presentation, and even then, though, it was enough to have people sit up and take notice.
Yeah, it comes right out of the wall, and it goes into a little doll. And the funny thing is we figured out right around the same time frame below that room, because that used to be the storage room for the tap room. That's where they kept the spirits, ironically. And Mike Markowitz was down there with you, and that's when he caught that EVP of the little girl saying, "Want to play dress up?" So it makes you wonder if there is a childlike spirit, this little Tinkerbell spirit floating around there still having fun.
Well, what about the information that Debbie pulled up this week?
Oh, yeah. We're talking about Debbie, the researcher. She just emailed Matt. Matt forwarded on to me. She found a book from the early 1900s, or like 1920, where they just nonchalantly mentioned that paupers were sold at the Fearing Tavern.
It was a slave trader.
Yeah. And we're not just African Americans. We're talking about anybody who was down on their luck. And it's like, oh, you don't have any means? Well, guess what? You're now my property, and I'm going to sell you to the next guy that comes along to the tavern.
That would include vagrants. That would include Native Americans.
It's scary to think that that was going on. And, I mean, not only was the guy a loyalist, we're now finding out he was in the slave trade. So, in my opinion, at this point, I think that does back up some of the people at the Historic Society. Ryder, who wrote the book, he was saying that
Raymond Ryder,
he was saying that he doesn't think the Fearing Tavern had anything to do with the Underground Railway, and it's starting to look like they wouldn't have been sympathetic to runaway slaves. They might be the kind of people who turn around and hand them back in for a reward. I mean, I'm going.
We are talking about generations later.
Yeah, generations later. So I guess maybe that's why Ryder was so adamant about saying that he found nothing about any connection to the Underground Railroad with the Fearing family in the tavern. But that was kind of a spooky thing to learn about. Benjamin Fearing.
Well, especially when you look at the Fearing family and a lot of the contributions that they made to the area.
Oh, tremendous! I mean, the area wouldn't have been the area without them. I mean,
and even today, some of their descendants are still in the area. I mean, I've had 2 people in the past couple of weeks contact me and let me know that they're descendants of the Fearing family, and of course, Israel Fearing. Just not too far from where we are here, Fort Phoenix. He helped defend that against the British. Marched all the way from Wareham. I think they took Route 6. And they came all the way up here from Wareham, and Israel actually went to the back of the line because his men did not want to go and fight because they felt that it wasn't their battle. If it was Fairhaven, it wasn't their problem.
Right.
And so he actually got behind them and told them that he would shoot the first man that ran off. So all these families are kind of interrelated to each other.
Oh,
You had
sure.
The Fearings, the Dillinghams, all these families that were all key to building this area, and now a lot of their spirits cross too. I guess, I mean, we'll tread on this lightly because we don't know how public it is, but you are investigating something else that's related to that family.
Yeah, Matt's been telling me for a while that there's a house that belonged to the Fearing family in Wareham that he's been hearing stories about for years. Matt, you want to fill the listeners in on some of those stories real quick?
Yeah, the house is related to, obviously, the Fearings, and for at least 30 years, I've been hearing stories about it, and for the past 25 years, I've always really wanted to get in there. Well, I've recently become friends with the homeowners, and we finally got the chance to go in there. And one of the girls that lived in there in the house told me several stories about what it was like growing up in the house. And she had an apparition when this is in, I would say, 1988. 89.
That's why I seem to remember the date she was throwing out. Yeah,
she had just became pregnant. She was in the house with her boyfriend, sitting on the couch. They were just watching television. The whole couch levitated about 1.5 feet off the ground and dropped them to the ground. There was nothing to pick up the couch. It was just a regular. As a matter of fact, she says one of those old-fashioned fold-out couches, which anybody that's ever had one of those,
takes 4 or 5 guys just to move it across the room.
Yeah, and it was just her and her boyfriend sitting on the couch. And later, she said after she had given birth to her daughter, this is shortly after, and she's a brand new mother. The baby's barely a few months old. A woman came from one of these side bedrooms, entered into her bedroom, and went right to the bassinet where the baby was sleeping. This freaked her out so much, she jumped up, ran out of the room, left the child in the room. That's how scared she was. How many mothers do you know that? How scared do you have to be? As the moment she got outside the door, she realized, I just left my kid, flicked the light on in the hall, went back, grabbed the kid, and ran downstairs. But the kid, her daughter, as her daughter grew up, would play with an imaginary friend that for years, she said, the kid would be sitting in the room talking to this other child that she couldn't see, but the child could plainly see and talk to. And said the little boy goes home at night to go sleep in the well and out back and behind the property. And as you know, the history about the children buried, under the apple tree out by the well.
That was mentioned to me today. I was actually at a yard sale in town, and I happened to run into some people who live in a home that's part of the property. And we're trying to speak very generally here so as not to give anything away. But I had heard the story about the children being buried on the property, and I had heard about children not wanting to leave their house, which is part of the original property, not wanting to leave. And when one generation came in as kids, they didn't want to leave, and now they're older, they bring their kids, and their kids don't want to leave. There's something there that keeps them there, that they don't want to part from the property.
Well, I can tell the story about, as you know, I was friends with the person that lived across the street, because I always looked across the street and was like, boy, I really like to get in there, but I'll call my friend John, who lived across from this house. I remember, talking to him. He told me stories about when he moved there. This is before the current owners are there, and he would play with the little kids in the apple tree across the street. But he's a respectable person in town, and he doesn't want to, you know how that works.
No, and I know who you're talking about, so I can understand the trepidation about sharing that. But it seems like this family, as much as they're tied into the town, it seems like their ghosts are pretty tied into it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I found the stories very, very interesting, and Matt had stayed in the kitchen. Actually, where the kitchen is now is where the couch story took place. The couch being lifted up and dropped, and I just just nonchalantly, discreetly, just wandered away from the group and went up into the attic, which has a reputation, and it does feel really weird up there, I have to admit. And I did an EVP session, and I wandered downstairs, and I was taking pictures from the UV through normal light into deep infrared, into that spectrum. And I was just taking pictures, and I was setting up the camera and taking a shot and making sure I got a good shot, and then just moving along. And when I went back downstairs into the first floor entryway, I took a shot up into the staircase with the camera and caught the open kitchen doorway, looking through the kitchen, through the living room, and you can actually see the detail of the trees in the backyard. From the foreground to the background, the detail of the picture is good, crisp, and clear, even though it's got that funny sort of infrared pink and UV blue color to some of the colors in it. Well, nobody was in that picture when I took the shot because I took my time setting the camera up and make sure I got a good steady photograph. Took the shot and I moved along to take some other shots, and 1:30 that night, running through the pictures in my computer on a much larger screen, I noticed there is a milky white human form in the middle of the kitchen, as if it's walking by the door. And I know, like my middle name is Scott, there was nobody in that picture when I took the shot. And the strange thing is they're washed of color. There is no color to them, and the detail is not there. But yet everything from the foreground to the background has absolute clarity and detail. And when I cropped it and brought the picture up, it looks very much to me like a colonial gentleman with a sort of Ben Franklin style haircut. In the face, you can make out what looks like eye sockets and lips and a chin and a nose. And we've got to get back into that house and take a bunch of pictures in that same location, just to make absolutely sure that there isn't some
weird light
exactly. But it doesn't even match anybody who was there that night. You can't even take somebody that was there and vaguely put them into that shape. So at this point in time, I'm a little bit excited about it. I think we lucked out and caught somebody in the infrared spectrum.
Well, I saw it earlier tonight before we came on the air, and after hearing about it,
yeah,
for the past week and being intrigued, it blew me away when I saw it. So, and you're going to reveal that to the public?
Oh yeah, certainly. I mean, if we're going to be at the Fearing Tavern, I think this investigation is relevant to that night, and I think people will find it fascinating. And I'd also like to hear what the folks have to say who see it. Because I'm not selling this as a ghost picture, but I'm telling you, Matt and I were there,
but it's an anomaly.
Yeah, it's definitely an anomaly that just doesn't belong there. It's a fascinating picture.
I can verify that nobody was in that doorway when he was taking that picture, because I was sitting at the kitchen table with the other individuals that were in that house. One person was a bald-headed male. The other was a black woman wearing a baseball cap. And the third was a blonde-headed woman who had her hair in a ponytail wearing a T-shirt. And you see the image. It would look like none of those people I've described.
Were you running your thermal at all?
I did do a little bit of that throughout we were only there for about an hour and a half. We were just there actually to collect the stories of the people. We brought some of the equipment just to show what we would do.
And you're just trying to get you're probably trying to get some establishing shots to see how you can utilize your equipment.
It was not an official hunt.
Right. We were there, it was a reconnoiter. We were there to get a layout of the place, figure out where we could go and set up later for upcoming investigations. It wasn't really an investigation. It was more of a fact-gathering type of excursion.
Yeah, we definitely want to get Mike Markowitz in there.
And I'm sure he would love to go.
I talked to him today. He's like, just give me a few days' notice and I'm there.
Yeah, that goes back to what we were talking about in the first hour of the show, is just the community aspect of the paranormal here. Everybody works together. Nobody's worried about stepping on everybody's toes because everybody wants to work together.
Yeah.
And that's definitely evident when reading Ghosthunting Southern New England, because you share a lot of the stories and experiences of other investigators. Yeah. It's not just about what you've encountered, but it's also about what they've encountered.
No, I felt very lucky to have contacts with people who had been to these places. Yes, I'd been there myself, but some of them had some amazing stories to tell themselves. Kathy Caslin's story of Groton, her and her nephew staying the night in the room 10 that was very haunted. And some people have actually were saying that they got woken up in the middle of the night, either having the blankets pulled off or someone tugging them and trying to wake them up. And she knew her nephew had to get to work early that morning around 6. So when she woke up to someone tugging her and pulling her in the bed, her tired brain, as it's waking up, is thinking, oh, it's my nephew telling me it's 6, we got to get going. And as she wakes up, she's still being shook in the bed, and her nephew's on the floor snoring. She basically put everything in her ghost hunting bag, woke him up, and didn't say anything to him until they got in the car. They were driving away. So, I mean, stories like that are just, to me, are precious. I mean, and I feel very lucky to know the people who had the firsthand experience with them.
And it's maybe it comes through this way for me because I know many of the people that you're writing about, but it seems too like all these investigators that you interviewed as part of the process of putting these stories together, they're all coming from different approaches.
Yes.
And they're all coming from different viewpoints and different belief systems. So you're getting kind of an amalgamation of what people think ghosts and spirits are in Southern New England.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not just a paranormal book. It's not just a tourism book. It's also kind of a cultural and anthropological book a little bit, because you're finding out more about that New England, cracking that New England exterior to get to what some of the beliefs are underneath.
Yeah, yeah.
And I never really asked you, what are your beliefs? Because you seem to have encountered enough of these spirits and to have made connections with them that you must have developed at least some sort of hypothesis of what you feel a ghost is.
Well, I do believe that it is the human spirit, the human existence. I do believe we are creatures of energy, and that right now we're just walking around in these biological machines that eventually give out, and they have their time and they go to dust in the earth. But I do believe we continue, who we are, what made us special, our own thoughts and feelings do continue on. But I think ghosts it's been my experience that ghosts come in different forms, different shades, different degrees. I mean, a lot of people go with that residual intelligent, and I don't debate that, but I just personally feel that a lot of hauntings that people immediately go, oh, well, it's residual, because people say they see the ghost doing the same thing over and over again, and it never interacts with people around it. Well, I always use this as an example. When I was in my early 20s, I fell in love and then got torpedoed, and the chick left me, and I think anybody in their early 20s remembers when that happens to you. It really messes you up. And I look back on it now that, as old as I am now, and I can recall being absolutely just heartbroken and fixated on that. And as I tell people, what if I had stepped off a curb in Providence thinking about that and got whacked by a bus, never saw the bus coming, and I don't know I'm dead, and I can't let go of what I was pondering? Mm-hmm. Maybe my ghost would constantly be doing the same thing over and over again, stepping off that that ghostly bus, stepping into the road and never paying attention to anybody around me, because at the time I died, I wasn't paying attention to anybody around me. I was just fixated on that emotion, that pain, or what have you. So maybe some ghosts that are labeled as residual, maybe they do have thoughts and feelings, but they're so locked into that thing they can't let go, that they just keep repeating the same thing over and over again that they just can't let go of in life. I mean, I do believe that some ghosts, the idea of residual, it is an interesting theory, the stone tape theory, the idea that if the right person comes into the environment at the right time, that tape, so to speak, will play over and over again. But I'm not completely convinced that there isn't some shade of human emotion or an intelligence left in that. And it also makes me wonder if some of these residual haunts, I think the word shade is the best word to use. I mean, I think we've had moments in our life where something happens and we say, a part of me died then. A part of me died when that happened. It almost makes me wonder if we actually do that. We actually have an aspect of our personality that's gone its course or had a very emotional time, and it comes time for that to end, and it just sort of like peels off of us and may stay and may stay in that environment if that environment allows for haunting. Because then you got to look at the the ideas of running water and the iron in the earth and the quartz and the granite, and I do think that has something to do with it. But I think ghosts have a lot more depth and detail to them than we can understand on this side of the veil. So I think you have hauntings that are there for different reasons. I also believe in the idea of visitation haunts. It's something that the psychic Pam I work with, she has said that there's a place in Smithfield that I couldn't write about in my book. It is actually a museum, but the Historic Society was like, please, we don't want it in the book. Mm-hmm. It's okay if you investigate here now and again, but don't put it in your book. And when I brought Pam into the location, she says there's two women here, and one of them is very melancholy and won't leave the site. But she says there's someone who is special to her that comes in and out in visitation. And it's funny because they see one of the women she's talking about, will see her walking around the house, but there's been times when they've heard two women singing church hymns upstairs. So it makes you wonder if one of them's stuck there because of melancholy, emotional reasons, and the other one is a little bit freer and may have stepped through the veil, but has that ability to come back because there's an attachment to that spot, emotional, love, and the family worked really hard to make that farm what it was in its day. So I think ghosts can haunt for all kinds of reasons.
See, I kind of fell into that trap that you're talking about with the idea of the intelligent versus the residual. And I kind of thought for a long time that it had to be one or the other based on the characteristics of the haunting. It had to be, because if it's not interacting, it couldn't be intelligent. But I'm starting to wonder if that's really true. I'm starting to wonder if maybe it just chooses not to interact, it doesn't have a need to interact, or maybe there's not enough of that veil lifted that it can interact. I'm starting to think that every spirit is capable of this interaction should the right circumstances be there, and that maybe we're only able to perceive so much of what it is coming through. So I think the whole intelligent versus replay residual debate is kind of almost in the past now. Because,
it's too black and white for me.
Yeah,
I know
exactly.
there's gray areas in everything. So I really think that I think you got to get to know your ghost. The ghost you're investigating, get to know them. And a lot of people looking in investigations, that my experience has been, they'd be like, well, I got into that house, we did an investigation, we didn't get any evidence, let's move along. And I'm lucky to say that I've got a few sites that I've gotten to know the owners of the property well, and they've gotten to trust me and like me, and they've allowed me to keep returning. So I think it's fascinating to be able to, some people say, well, are you beating that case to death? And I say, no, I'm learning more and more about that particular haunting with every time, I go there. And sometimes I'll stay away for a while and tell them, hey, call me if the activity kicks up. But I've been able to learn patterns in some spots that I've been able to keep going back to for the last couple of years. And you do start to learn things, and little details come out, and you do get to learn their personality, and you realize a couple of them may be wandering around and they don't even know the homeowners are there, but there's a couple of them in one house in North Situate, Rhode Island, that definitely knows the homeowners there, and he's trying to put his foot down and still claim that's his turf and his territory, and he calls the shots. So it's an interesting haunt. It really is. It's multi-layered.
I was going to say, ghost hunting is like fishing.
Yeah.
You go to one pond, you don't catch anything in that pond for that day. Does that mean there's no fish?
No.
You got to go back continuously, and eventually, if you fish the pond enough, you know where they bite from. In some cases, if you do catch and release, sometimes you catch the same fish and doing the same habits.
And that's a great analogy, and something I mentioned in the book, the chapter on Hopkins Mill, Rhode Island. It's in the town of Foster. There is a pool that formed because of a dam that was at the Ramtail factory, and it formed a pool that they used to call the Ramtail swimming pool. And today it's become a favorite spot for guys to sink their hooks. And I've talked to 3 different sets of people from that town that knew nothing about the pool's reputation, but there's a ghost named Betsy Grayson that haunts the pool. And I've talked to 3 separate groups of people who are fishing at the hole, same time of year, same time of day, same exact phenomena. A smoky white apparition came up out of the pool, hovered above the pool, and then floated off into the woods. And so I found it funny that using that analogy, Matt. And here we go, got fishermen. They're looking for perch, and they're
and
getting
just like fishermen, you got ghost stories.
Yeah.
Wind up being like fishing
exactly.
stories.
But the ghost was this big.
Yeah.
No, it was this big.
But what I found fascinating is all 3 of these people knew nothing about the legend. They had no idea that there was anything paranormal about the location. They just thought, oh, what a great place to cast a line, and didn't catch fish, but they certainly caught an experience they'll never forget.
Well, you said there's 36 chapters in the book?
36, yes.
And out of all the places that you were able to investigate for the book, what place captured your interest the most? What place holds the most, what place haunts you, so to speak?
Well, one spot that I am going back to will be Venforth Hall in Lenox, Mass. We were talking about Lenox earlier. Mm-hmm. While I was there with Chicopee Paranormal, getting the stories from Mark, the head docent in the place, and I got to stay that night and go ghost hunting with Chicopee, and they were a terrific group. They definitely have their act together, and very gadget oriented, which I'm not, but I do respect that. And we had an experience down in the bowling alley. I'll let the book tell the story, but since that, I want to get back to Venforth Hall, and fortunately I will be going there in October on the 19th. To do a presentation there, and I'm hoping they'll let me stay after the presentation and poke around in the place some more.
And that's a place that had some very famous residents over the years, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, the thing we're talking about history, real quick, talking about things getting backed up by evidence. The owner's first wife passed away, and he remarried, and his second wife had the same first name, so everyone called her Susie. was the nickname. And Chicopee Paranormal got a series of EVPs where as soon as they shut the door to the libraries, they got one voice said, "He's gone." And the next voice said, "Where's Susie?" And the other one said, "I don't know." And when they did the research to find out that the homeowner's second wife had this as a nickname, it really makes you wonder who's still hanging out in the old homestead. And the funny thing was, it's kind of like Belcourt Castle. It was a summer house for the rich, so people weren't there all year round. I mean, the staff was there, but when you think about the staff and the dedication to take care of such a house, Tom was telling me the story where they took a coffee break down in the hallway, and when they were all done with their coffee, they broke up into 3 groups to go off and sit in vigil, and they left a recorder running in the hallway, and some male voice goes, "They'll need more coffee." So it makes you think there was probably a butler hanging out with him, doing what he could to take care of him. But again, it's just from the Gilded Age, just a beautiful house. The Venforth Hall Association is doing an unbelievable job restoring the building, bringing it back to its glory.
I said that was one of the ones that fell into disrepair, right?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, some guy got a hold of it, and he was basically just removing the artifacts from the house. The beautiful light fixtures, and took the whole bowling alley in the basement out, which was a shame. But even though the bowling alley is empty, there's somebody down there haunting it. As you'll read the book, there's definitely somebody who found the.
Was he Munsoned?
We don't.
He may have been Munsoned.
Yeah, it could be.
Well, and you talk about a number of locations in the book, too, that we've discussed on the show, including the Houghton Mansion, Lizzie Borden's, of course, the Fearing Tavern. But one of the ones that I think you got into the really interesting aspects of the story behind it was the Victorian Mansion in Gardner.
Yeah, that was kind of a funny thing. I was off doing research. A friend of mine, Jim McNasher, had tagged along, and we found a place that didn't want me writing about them or talking about them, and it was a shame. It looked like a really good historic house and museum, very old. And that was a bust, so I was thinking, gee, where can I go? And I thought, well, there's that house, the Victorian, up in Gardner. Last time I heard about it, which was back, Ghost Hunters went there. The owner was so fascinated with it, he was actually letting people into the house. So I figured, I'll swing by. It's a private residence. It really doesn't fit into the book, but if they're allowing for tours, I mean, maybe the guy would be open-minded about letting me interview him. Well, that owner was no longer there, and there was a brand new owner. Edwin Gonzalez was there, and the day I knocked on his door was only 2 nights after he saw his first ghost in the house. And when he and his wife bought the house, and people started telling them, "You do realize you bought a haunted house?" They were like, "Yeah, whatever. It's a beautiful mansion. We want to take on the task of restoring this beautiful house and preserving it." And they just sort of poo-pooed the idea. But when he had Edwin Sari come around, come around the side of his computer screen and stare him face to face and knock him right off his chair with shock and surprise, that's when he started to wonder, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. And then when I knocked on his door, he was like, "So you're a ghost hunter, huh?" He goes, "Can I talk to you about something?" And the look at his face was it was perfect. And after listening to his story, I said, "Yeah, you've basically bought one of the most haunted houses in Massachusetts, and you might want to look into that." And since then, he's brought everybody in there, from Tom D'Agostino to Ron Kolick and all these people, and they're running investigations for the public to attend and all kinds of public events. So I wholly, recommend it to anybody to go check out. The house has so much history. It's so beautiful, and it definitely is haunted as all heck from the basement up to the attic.
I had my own sighting in the house one day when I was up there with Andy. I mean, there was the best way I could describe it is a male type shadowed figure, because the window silhouetted whatever it was on the stairway, and it moved up the stairway in one motion as I'm looking at it. And I turned to look at Andy, and I shot him the look like I just saw something.
Yeah, and as we were saying, it was just as we were leaving. And what's interesting is I then was confirmed by Edwin and others that the stairway is this grand, beautiful staircase is very active. There's not only a little boy who runs up and down it, but Edwin himself has seen a translucent male figure walking down the staircase. He said that was actually exciting. He got a kick out of that. It was later that week when he went downstairs to get wood pellets for his wood pellet stove, and a figure walked across him in the cellar. He said that one made him run upstairs and hide in the kitchen. But what I found interesting about the story is when I was there with Matt was fascinated with the old furnace in the cellar, and he was explaining how the thing would have been hooked up originally and would have operated. And the whole time I'm standing there listening to Matt, I just felt so uneasy in the spot I was standing in. I kept turning around and looking at this antique furniture. And I said, excuse me, Matt, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I got to stand away from this furniture. For some reason, I'm getting creeped out over here. Well, I bring up Pam Padalano, and the day I brought her up, I called up to let Edwin know we were there. And as he's on the phone, I hear this loud crash behind him. On a windless day, the screen separated from his window and flew across his office. So we go in there, we take Pam down into the basement, and she looks at the furniture and goes, Edwin, is that furniture original to the house? And he goes, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff in this house. I don't know if it's original. She goes, well, somebody's still clinging to that furniture. And Pam had not known about my uneasiness a month earlier. And this is exactly where Edwin saw the shadow figure. It was like it got up out of one of the chairs and walked right in front of him in the basement. And he said, for some reason, that one wasn't as fun as the guy in the stairs.
Well, bringing up the Victorian Mansion in Gardner, I got to ask this question, and it's popping up in the chat room, too. And if you want to call in, by the way, anybody, if you want to call in with any questions for Andrew Lake, author of Ghosthunting Southern New England, the numbers are 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420. Email spookycrew@spookysouthcoast.com or texts at 508-444-2661. But the question is popping up in the chat room. People want to know, what are your thoughts then about the fact that this home has now been opened up for public tours and has now been opened up for investigation at a price?
Well,
and the price tends to increase as the activity does.
Yeah, I mean, I have no knowledge of who's running that business, if you will, for them. All I know is in order to properly restore that house, it's going to take some big money. They told me the price on the slate roof alone, and I don't have that kind of change in the bank myself. So if people are looking for a true haunted house, or a house that has a reputation that they can go in and either take a tour or ghost hunt in, they're being given this opportunity. I don't think the Gonzalez's are going off to Puerto Rico and sitting on the beach and drinking margaritas with this money. I know they are sincerely trying to restore this beautiful house that is a very important part of that part of Massachusetts history. I mean, that was the furniture capital of the world, and S.K. Pierce was one of those people that made that town, and it would be a shame to see that house go down. I mean, the Gonzalez's, from what I understand, own a house in Boston. They bought this house because they just fell in love with its architecture and they wanted to save it. To find out that it was haunted was something that came months later as the experience is built up. So, yeah, I know that some people look at it and say, well, you know, is this just a story to generate money in a business?
Let's take a step back, though.
Yeah.
They didn't find out that it was haunted months later. They were told that it was haunted up front.
Yeah, but they ignored that.
They didn't believe it until afterwards.
I believe it was somebody from the bank or the real estate company mentioned it because
and there'd already been an episode of Ghost Hunters from there, and it already was kind of
that
was already in lore.
That was unknown to them about the publicity it got. But it was as they moved in and people would come up to him and look at him funny and go, you do realize that the house is supposed to be haunted? That's when they were poo-pooing.
But as so many homeowners, it happens. They say, yeah, sure.
Right.
I'm still getting a good deal here. I still want to save this property. And then they just tend to believe afterward.
But it's a double-edged sword. I mean, Edwin is kind enough to open the house. He could close the doors and tell researchers and ghost hunters, too bad. This is my house. It's private. It's my home. He's using what he's getting from this money, like Andy said, he's using it to restore the home. He's not lining his pockets with it. It's going into refurbishing the place. I mean, he's going to get it from either angle. Oh, you're charging money to come in. You're just using this to make money. Or if he closed the doors to everybody, he's a mean curmudgeon that won't let us in. It's a no-win situation.
He becomes Doobie.
Yeah.
Down in Fall River. But the problem is, I mean, I guess, on face value, if you're a paranormal investigator, you want to look at it and say, well, wait a minute, that's not right. But then again, how is that any different than any of these other places that are charging you for a room for the night?
Yeah.
Or if you want to, I'm sure a lot of these inns and other places, taverns and other places that you investigate, if you want to conduct an investigation, they will tell you, okay, well, it's, $1,200 to rent the place out for the night. And that's just how I don't think I'm giving away any trade secrets here to say Lizzie Borden doesn't give the house away to paranormal investigators to come in and do those investigations. No. They either rent a room or in some cases they rent the house out for the night.
Yeah, you're covering cost overhead. Mm-hmm. Pure, plain and simple. You do
even
that
if you're not, though. Even if you are just doing it to make profit, so what? You invested the money in buying that property, and if that's how you want to, get a return on your investment, then
Welcome to America.
Yeah.
Capitalism at its best.
I'm not, but saying that now, I'm saying they have every right to do it, but at the same time, people have every right to be skeptical of them for that. Judging the story from, 12 towns away isn't the way to do it. Going there, talking to them,
right,
working with them, figuring, that's the way to find out more. So, we're getting into a lot of third-party information. Obviously, you guys are given the opportunity to go there and investigate without having to worry about all that stuff. But it's just, it's one of those things. It's going to come up, and I'm sure that they're dealing with it on a daily basis. And I waver on it. I'm like, no, it's not right.
It makes sense. It
is right.
separates out the people that are serious about it from the looky-loos. If it was just free to anybody come in, their door would be constantly going 24 hours a day.
Mhm.
I can understand if you're serious about covering this.
And also the fly-by-night paranormal groups that just meet up on formerly MySpace, now Facebook. These people who are just getting into it for the sake of getting into it, and Gardner's 10 minutes from their house. Well, if you're actually charging them money to come in and do it, they're going to be less likely to come in. You're going to get more seasoned groups that are serious about it. Or on the flip side, you're going to get people who are definitely going to be more respectful and are going to be more serious about the investigation because they paid for it. I mean, we're always more careful about what we actually laid a buck down for than what we're getting for free.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're going to have some kind of paranormal event, do you have it at some little boring rental hall, or do you have it in a Victorian mansion that's supposed to be haunted? I mean, it's you're just providing a venue for the subject. I wouldn't pass judgment on the situation there, because like I said, they didn't buy the house because it was haunted thinking, hey, let's turn it into a haunted hayride. It was something that came up later thinking, well, we now realize this place does have activity. People are really, really interested in it. They're knocking at our door. Let them in, and let's see if we can pay some of the bills.
I'm going to say, and I don't want to spend too much more time on this, but because we are running low on time, but I'll say this: if they did buy it for the purpose of running a haunted hayride out of it, and they weren't being upfront about that, then that's disingenuous. So I'd rather somebody said, hey, I'm buying this place because I heard that it's haunted, and I think I can make some money charging people coming in here to ghost hunt. Believe me, if I had the money when it was up for sale, if I had $1.5 million or whatever they were asking for, I know it went for 9 something, but if I had $1.5 million, I would have bought Amityville. I would have bought Ocean Avenue, and I would have turned it into a bed and breakfast, and I would have charged people to come and investigate, and I would have charged every single movie company that wanted to film an Amityville movie to come and film at the actual location, because why not?
Yeah, it's America.
You're not really doing a disservice to the evidence by charging the people for coming in to get it. But, like I said, we're going to get into a debate here that's going to go on all night long.
Sure.
I'd rather finish up in the last few minutes we have talking more about Ghosthunting Southern New England, which is available pretty much anywhere you can get books, also online at Amazon.com, and we're putting it up on the store. Did we get it in the store already, Matt? Or?
Not yet. But
okay, because we had some people in the chat room that want to buy it through the store, so if they can just hold off. But don't hold off too long, because they're going to go fast. And again, the event is coming up on November 13th.
Yes, the Northern Rhode Island event. Yep. Also going to be doing one with Tiffany November 5th. And
she can go to her Facebook, Spirit Medium Tiffany. She's got all the information up there. And I'm gonna get the actual website for the Northern Rhode Island Paranormal.
Yes.
Dead air here. The Northern Rhode Island Paranormal Fest.
Yes.
2011.
That's correct.
If you go to facebook.com/Northern RI Paranormal Fest, you can get all the information there and find out more about it. So, and also while you're there, why not like it too? And that's you'll be signing copies of the book there. You'll also be signing copies of the book at Haunted History Night.
Oh, sure.
Coming up October 15th at the Fearing Tavern in Wareham. You can go to SpookySouthcoast.com to get your tickets for that. I highly recommend that you buy them quickly, because even though, we're still a few weeks away, people are going to start picking up on it, and we're going to start having it in a lot of the local news outlets. And so if you want to get ahead, we kind of reserved a lot of that in the early going so that the paranormal community could have their chance to get the first crack at the tickets. And now we're getting to the point where we're going to start releasing them more to the general public. And so now, they're going to go because we had whole families coming up to us last Sunday that wanted to buy tickets. So definitely do so. And they're only $99. You get dinner, you get lectures, you get to meet Andy, you get to meet Jeff Belanger, you get to meet Matt Moniz, who, I mean, this guy's just a tattoo waiting to happen. Once he signs your breast, you're going to go down and see our friend Roger at Sinners and Saints and have that tattooed. Roger's got a great event coming up, too. We're going to be talking about
He
it
also
next
wants
few
me
weeks.
to investigate his house, his home.
Really?
Yeah. His father, mother, and brother all died in the house. And they were their family friends. And what's interesting is I knew the family. And the house is relatively new construction, so they were the only people to live in this house. So I'm intrigued.
Well, if you go to Sinners and Saints, you can buy tickets for an event they have coming up November 17th. Mick Foley is actually coming to Wareham, to Salerno's Function Hall. They're going to be having a fundraiser there on November 17th. So make sure that you go to Sinners and Saints and buy your tickets there. We're going to have Roger on coming up in the coming weeks to talk more about that. And, Roger's an old friend of the show. We've had him on in the past. So we'll talk about that coming up. And I've met Mick a few occasions, and he's definitely a great guy, great stories, and very friendly. And they're going to actually have an autograph session at Sinners and Saints prior to that event. So we'll have more information about that coming up. But again, Haunted History Night 2011. Go to SpookySouthcoast.com and purchase your tickets for your chance to come and meet Andrew Lake and buy a signed copy of Ghosthunting Southern New England. And you might want to pick it up before then and start reading all about the Fearing Tavern and so many of these other great locations. Is it available as an ebook too? Or?
Yeah, I believe it's on Nook. I know that.
Okay. I have it on mine, but that's because I steal things off the internet. I got it from your PR people because they were afraid they weren't going to get the book in time. And I said, you don't have to worry. As long as I can get it in some form, it's not going to take me long to read it because I know Andrew's style and I know just that it's going to be a great book. And everybody, all the reviews that I've read, everybody's commenting. So you would never know, Andrew, that at one point you were actually worried about whether or not you were going to get this out in time.
Mommy, make this book go away.
Well, here it is, and it's great. It's great just cracking open that case.
Yeah.
And
seeing... yeah. That's what Jeff told me. He goes, wait till you break the box and you see your book for the first time.
And which location is that on the cover?
That is the Houghton Mansion, and the statue in the foreground.
There's the Masonic symbol.
Is Pan at Belcourt Castle. It was a real neat statue. I turned around, saw him staring at me, took the shot, and clear as he loved it, and said that's our ghost for the cover.
There you go. Very nice. And there is a great amount of comments in the chat room. They want to know if Pam would come on the show.
Oh, I think she'd love to. I mean,
Okay.
Pam's a fascinating person. She really is.
All right. Well, then we will definitely hook that up in the future. Stay tuned to SpookySouthcoast.com for more information about that. I think next week, I'm not totally sure, but I'll have to check with Chris. I think next week, we're talking about Iroquois Supernatural, which is a fascinating book. It's a huge book that I've been reading over the last few weeks, and we'll learn all about the paranormal of the Iroquois Nation. But if it's not next week, it's definitely a show that's coming up.
That sounds cool.
In the next few weeks. I'm excited. Whenever we can pay respect to the Native American cultures and find out more about what came before our ghost stories, it's always fascinating to me. So stay tuned to Spooky TV 2 during the week. Tuesday night, 9 p.m., Spirit Connections with Tiffany Rice.
Yeah.
And new programs are coming up. You were a guest on the show just a few weeks ago.
Had a lot of fun. It was a good time.
And
her dog
I'll be on in 2 weeks.
Yeah, watch out for her dog. It passes wind while you're doing the interview.
And believe it or not, it's not the giant spacious studio that it appears.
Oh, it's gigantic.
Yes.
You play Frisbee in there.
And so definitely check that out. And when Matt Moniz is on, make sure you go in the chat room and harass the crap out of him. Because they do read every comment in the chat room during the show. So we'll be back next week at our regular time, just after 10 p.m. Eastern. We'll be talking about the paranormal. We're actually focusing on ghosts and ghost stories all through October. Why not? It's the Halloween season.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So, we still got to figure out what we're going to wear. So, we're also working out a whole bunch of other things. We've got appearance requests coming in left and right, and we've got some ideas and some things going on. So, stay tuned to SpookySouthcoast.com. Follow us on Twitter at SpookySC. Find me on Facebook and like us on Facebook at Spooky South Coast on Facebook. And we'll have updates for all that stuff and more. So, until next week, when we return just after 10 p.m. For Matt Costa, for Matt Moniz, for Chris Balzano, for Andrew Lake, and for everybody that helps make this show so spooktacular, we want you all to stay spooktacular.
Major League Baseball players are getting in on the action.
Hi, I'm Michael Young.
I'm Chris Young. I'm Carlos Pena. And we're getting in on the action. thousands of high school students across the country are getting in on the action by volunteering in their communities. Action teams of high school students are joining Volunteers of America and Major League Baseball.
First with local news, talk, and sports. This is WBSM New Bedford, AM 1420. WBSM, a Cumulus station.
From ABC News, I'm Todd Ant. In Northern California, a man accused of killing 2 people was himself killed in a shootout with police Saturday. Described as deranged and schizophrenic, the months-long manhunt for Aaron Bassler had the coastal community with just 7,000 residents on edge. Mendocino County Sheriff Tom Allman says Bassler was armed and dangerous.
There was a round in the chamber, and his rifle was not on safety. It was on fire. He was fully prepared to engage any law enforcement officers that he saw. We believe there were 7 shots fired, and we believe all 7 hit him.
Bassler was shot and killed by police in the woods near Fort Bragg. Putting pressure on his Republican rivals, President Obama says anyone who wants to be commander-in-chief must support gay service members in the military, and in the process, he touted his success in repealing the military's Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy.
All around the world, you've got gays and lesbians who are serving, and the only difference is now they can put up a family photo. You should never have to look over your shoulder to be gay in the United States of America. That's why we got it done.
The president addressed the controversy in Washington Saturday at the annual dinner for the Human Rights Campaign.